Button podcast, where we talk about mental health, how we get through it, why we get through it, everything in between, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that fun stuff. I might sound very raspy today. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to blame it on the weather because we like to do that here. And it's just like I'm like super groggy and I don't know. I feel great. Like I feel fine. I just sound terrible. But yeah, I'm hanging in there, getting through the week. Even though it's only Monday, it feels like it should already be Thursday. Today was definitely a Monday, if that makes sense. But yeah, jumping into it tonight, we do have special guest, Ted. Now we have to kick that out right away.
That's my uncle's name.
Holy shit! See, I shouldn't do this when I'm like not. It's the voice. We'll blame it on the voice. So scratch that part out. So we do have a special guest tonight, Todd Rennebohm, joining us. Did I say that wrong?
It was good. It was with a bit
I
of
feel like I was thinking about like what Nick would say. Oh shit!
It was a bit of a Midwestern accent to it. It was like Todd Rennebohm.
Well, yeah, I'm from Chicago.
It's Todd Rennebohm is how I pronounce it, but it's fine. It's just don't call me late.
You know what? You know what, Todd? I'll let you introduce yourself. God damn it!
No, I like it.
All right. So, along with being a father and husband, Todd is an advocate. He's an author, podcaster, suicide attempt survivor, and he was recently diagnosed with ADHD. Todd began advocating for mental health in late 2015, just before entering an addiction treatment center. Since then, he has organized rallies, petitions, written the highly praised children's book, sometimes Daddy Cries, and spoken at countless schools and events. Between speaking engagements, Todd hosts his top Canadian mental health podcast, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. Todd, you hear what?
Yeah, gosh, that was nice. Who wrote that?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, wait, that was me, I guess. I hate writing those, by the way.
I know, I hate when people are like, can you tell me about yourself? And I'm like, I guess.
It's writing about myself is it the third person?
Is it? Like, yeah.
So what's that's called? I can always get the first and third person screwed up, but anyways, like Todd has done this. It's like, oh, I would never even say this to anyone, but yet I have to write it.
I know you have to like actually talk nice to yourself and be like, oh, I did do these things. That's right. I did do that. Yeah. Well, appreciate you having you on here. I'm super excited to talk to you and learn a little bit more about your story. Your podcast is super successful. I am a big fan myself.
Oh, good.
Did get my Bunny Hugs t-shirt. Big fan. One? I did order one. I ordered the one that I'll have to show you. Maybe it'll be like the cover for this one. But I love the make your bed and take your meds. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. My partner laughed. She goes, whoever came up with that, that's it right there. And I said, right? Like,
that's me. That's how I end every episode. Remember, take your meds. No, I fucked it up. I always say, remember, make your beds and take your meds.
That's I love it.
Sign out. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Yep. So I did. I'm actually wearing it right now, but you would never know.
You're right.
I made Todd shut off his camera, and now he's all flustered.
No one's looking at me.
He may or may not be wearing pants, people.
You know what I should do? I should put on Instagram Live, so somebody's watching me, but it's just not you,
right?
Anyway, that's not why we're here.
Let's get back to what everybody is actually like. Where is this going? What the hell are they talking about?
Enough about pants.
Right. So for those of us who don't know in the community, yet we all know Todd in the community, tell us a little bit more about your mental health journey.
Well, it usually takes me an hour to tell my story, but so I'll try to do it.
Okay, signing off then now. Goodbye.
Okay, I'll hit stop when I'm done. It really started from when I was like a kid. When I was in grade 5, I was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer because I had such bad anxiety. I like my guts were rotting, and I'm 46 years old now, so 38 years ago or whatever it was when I was in grade 5, there was no real. I don't know. They didn't call it anxiety. They just treated me for my stomach ulcer, like they treated the physical part of it. And my mom just told people I had a nervous stomach, and I worried a lot. Right? There was no word anxiety. I'm sure there was the word, but like, people didn't use it to describe the mood children have. So anyway,
Those
that
anxious little bastards.
yeah, I was the nervous boy. And then going into high school, I started drinking. I live in a small town, and um, I have the same like 20 kids that I've grown up with since kindergarten all the way, to grade 12. And so, I remember being younger and not really relating with them. But once high school hit, and um, drinking was kind of what the thing we had in common. So I became the class clown party guy. I didn't play hockey. I wasn't a farmer. I wasn't all these other things that the other kids were. My parents grew up in a city, so I was like, everyone else's families they're like third, fourth generation around here. But anyway, so yeah, I got really good at drinking. Um, growing up, I did experience some sexual trauma. Um, I always say sexual trauma. I never say I was abused because it was child on child. And so I don't feel like I was like preyed upon or anything, I wasn't like, they weren't being abusive. It was trauma, right? It was stuff that kids shouldn't be doing, let's say.
Right.
But it's still, still traumatic.
Absolutely.
So I've been, that's something I've just kind of been dealing with in the last year or two. Because I finally got sober and stuff. It was like I had to deal with the big stuff. Well, not that this wasn't big, but I had to have a good solid base, a good foundation, healthy foundation before I could start, attacking some of the really ouchy stuff. But anyway, so anyway, I'm a good drinker. I graduate. My first job out of high school, it's like an animal shelter, and I'm like 18 years old, and part of my job is like putting down animals, and I'm a huge animal fan, and so I'm like, it was such a fucking weird job. I'm telling you, it's like, and my manager like sexually assaulted me at a party. She was like 50 or something, and I was 18, and like it just was a fucked up first year out of high school. And I remember thinking, like, is this what an adult is? Is this what like what the old ladies trying to make out with you and killing dogs and like, and so anyway, that the drinking kind of, I don't know if I started drinking more, but I started drinking more extreme, I guess, and I'd start having suicidal thoughts and crying and stuff when I get really drunk. And that's kind of the start of my suicidal thoughts. I was probably 18, 19 years old. Yeah, and then I kind of I tried going to university, and I flunked out, and I ended up joining a band and a couple day jobs, and eventually the band turned into a full-time thing and kind of toured around, and it's going to be a rock star. And you're in a bar all the time when you're playing in a band, and you're around booze and drugs and all types of shit when playing in a band. I never really did any drugs other than like marijuana, and I was I wanted to do more drugs. See, the other guys in the band, they would do drugs between our third and fourth set, and I couldn't do that because I was a drummer, and I just couldn't perform high. I just couldn't. So that I'd go to them after the gig and I'd be like, okay, my turn for drugs. And they're like, we did them all. And I was like, oh, well, for fuck's sakes. So I became more of a drunk because I would try to catch up with them with alcohol. There's or weed too. Like there was lots of weed around, but I didn't get to experiment too much with the other stuff. But anyway, that's a sad story, isn't it?
Wah, wah,
Poor Todd didn't get to do E.
wah.
But anyway, but eventually the band broke up. I was living in the city of Regina, and I decided I had a girlfriend at the time, and so once the band broke up, I was very, it was heartbreaking. It was a real, you know, it was a real team effort, that kind of thing. And then when you all split up, and it was kind of rough. So I decided to move back to my hometown. Houses were cheap back then. It was like early 2000s. We bought a house for like $30,000 and um, make it $7 an hour. We got married, and I started bouncing around from job to job again locally. And my depression and anxiety kind of turned to anger, which is very common in my family and men in general, especially in a community like this. So I'd started waking up mad, going to a job I hated. I hated anger, even though I was angry all the time. Like, it's not good anger. Like, it's not like, I don't know. It was embarrassing. Like I'd punch a wall if I burnt my toast. Like just stupid shit. It's like
Right.
it was like more like a temper tantrum more than anything, right? Yeah, I didn't like it. It was so embarrassing. And that kind of stayed with me for quite a while, that anger shit. But even to the point I had kids, and then it was like my family would walk around on eggshells when I'd get in these like fucking. I wouldn't say they were moods; they were more like blow ups, because they, as quickly as I got them, they would leave too, right? But still, it was very embarrassing, and it was hard to see my kids like have fear in their eyes and be intimidated by their dad, and it's just so gross. But anyway, so then I just kept trying to do different jobs, and I tried different businesses on my own, and eventually I got a job with the federal government here in my small town, and I thought, this is great. I've made it. I've got a good job. And I remember my parents were super pumped because they're like, oh, you're gonna get a good retirement plan and all this shit. And it was probably the most toxic group of people I've ever worked with. It was
shit.
It was not good. And but I started going on meds then. So I was trying to be proactive. But I was still like drinking and smoking lots of weed, and eventually I started seeing a counselor. So again, I'm thinking I'm being really proactive, even though I'm not doing any of the work. I'm taking medication, but I'm still like drinking every day and stuff. Why aren't the meds working? And I remember a few times like getting pissed off, like, that stupid counselor, he hasn't even cured me. These meds don't do anything. But as someone that's gone through it now, it's like, well, yeah, you have to do the work. Like these nothing's gonna cure you. Like, you have to do. This is just,
You mean you're not supposed to take your pills with like vodka?
Right? Yeah, and then like go see your counselor, and when they say do this when you feel this way, don't do any of it.
Whoops.
Yeah, and then I started doing stuff outside my moral code, I'd say. Which then really put on a lot of guilt and shame on top of the drinking every day, on top of the high functioning depression I had, on top of the anxiety, which was coming out as anger. So it was, I was a bit of a wreck, but I was still I was still a fun party guy at parties and stuff. I was still like a class clown and stuff. So, people just couldn't tell, I guess, unless you were like behind closed doors. But even then, I was still, fun at times, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. He kind of sucks. He's kind of cool.
Yeah, kind of. I was like, I loved making people laugh and having a good time, but inside I also just hated myself. Right? It was like, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. But have you ever heard of the boiling frog? It's like you put a frog in a pot of water, cold water, and you just slowly turn up the heat. and they never jump out because they, you get so used to that temperature that eventually it comes to boiling and you're just like, now you're dead. And like, that's kind of what was happening with me. I was just slowly just kind of adding layer on and having no idea that I was just about to explode. Like I was a ticking time bomb. And it happened one day at lunch, and I ended up driving myself to the hospital, and that was a shit show. The doctor in the ER basically just told me to go home and keep taking my meds. So it was like super.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. It was very unvalidating. It was dangerous because I was like, well, okay, I'm already on meds. I'm seeing a counselor, and I actually reached out in a crisis thinking the hospital would help. Basically just devaluated it, or validation. What's the opposite of validating? Unvalidated? Misvalidated me?
I called you Ted, so you're going to ask me? Dude.
That's true. Well, anyway, he didn't validate me. And so then I just spiraled. I was like, so over the next year, I just kind of kept doing what I was doing times 3 and thinking that it was okay because I went to the hospital and they didn't seem to fucking care. So can I swear?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Everyone always asks me that too on my podcast. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm like, really? Yes, I asked my son, I'm like, where did you learn that? Well, you said it. Oh, shit, I did. You're right. You're right.
No, I didn't, you little fucker.
You're a little lion sack of shit, man.
Anyway, where was I? I was sad. Oh yes, I was sad. So over the next year, I just kind of, amped up my against my moral code stuff, and eventually I snapped again, and it was a real dark, shitty day, and took about 3 police officers and my brother to like calm me down and get a knife out of my hand, and I tried to grab one of the cops' guns and all this shit. And so anyway, about almost a year to the day, I'm back at that same hospital, but this time I'm handcuffed to a gurney with police on either side of me, showing up in an ambulance. And I thought, oh, this is what I had to do to get help in the hospital. And I mean, the first time I went was okay, fair enough. Maybe I didn't need the hospital, but like you offered nothing, like no outpatient care, no new medication, like no nothing. Like was just like, no, go home. So anyway, that really pissed me off. But so anyway, I spent a couple of weeks in the psych ward. I opened up to my family about like all the naughty things I was up to. And everybody was really upset that I had tried this, taking my life, and that I was doing this stuff that I would never normally do. I never even imagined I would do it myself, but I was doing just shitty shit as people who are addicts do or depressed do. It was basically, I was trying to do anything that gave me instant gratification, but it was like ultimately really not a good investment emotionally for myself or other people, like an hour later or even, shorter. But anyway, so then when I was in the hospital 2 different times, people from AA came to my room, and twice I shooed them away because I was like, these people are nuts. Like, I don't need to join a cult. Like, I've got enough problems. But I literally thought there was nothing wrong with me that way. I thought I was just depressed and, crazy. But eventually I came home, and that was rough, and I kept seeing a counselor. At this point, my wife started seeing a counselor on her own too. And then we started seeing one together as a couple to really try to work through what was going on, and for her to, I mean, you can't go on as a couple unless you're both kind of on the same page, and we both had stuff that we needed to work on. And then, we worked on stuff together, right?
Yeah.
And she did really well, and I seemed to be doing well, but like 2 years later, I was basically in the same boat again. I was depressed and high, drunk all the time, and feeling sorry for myself and feeling bad about all the stuff I had done. And then one day I was reading the paper that my local psych ward was losing like 20 jobs. And I got really pissed off because, I mean, I saw security in there all the time. And I mean, it was like 17 of those, whatever amount of jobs they were cutting were psych nurses. Like, I was like, what the, like, how the fuck? Like, I didn't even know there were 17 psych nurses that work there. So you're just going to cut all of them? Like, so I got really pissed off. And this time it was like a good anger. Like, it was a good, like, motivating anger. So I wrote like this big letter to, I don't even know who I was writing it to, but I wrote it out and basically came out, told my story about going to the hospital and them turning me away, and a year later coming back after a suicide attempt, and living in a small town. People kind of knew my story, but not really. I'd never really talked about it. And anyway, the letter kind of blew up and went viral. News outlets, like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 different interviews the next day that because I did send it to a couple news places and also put on Facebook, and it was like, yeah, shared tens of thousands of times. And so anyway, I was kind of thrown into this role of advocate, and I kind of rode that way for about a month or two, but I was not healthy I was in no place mentally to be an advocate, let's say. And within a month, I was like detoxing in the hospital because I woke my wife up in the middle of the night again, telling her I was going to hurt myself, and she was at her wit's end. She was like, I can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. I can't keep going through this. Like, I love you so much, but like I can't, like, like, and I don't blame her. Like, that must have been the hardest position on earth, is being a loved one to someone that's going through this,
I'm sure.
So anyway, with some coaxing, I stayed in the hospital for a couple of weeks and detoxed, and I basically stayed home. But at this point I was working for myself again, and I just abandoned my business and white knuckled it at home for 3 months, waiting for my stay at the treatment center. So that day came along. Well, actually, I started going to meetings. Started going to AA meetings during that time period. But anyway, then I ended up in treatment, and it was, super scary, and it was awful. It was so much work. It was brutal, and it was also awesome. Like, it was the greatest thing I ever did. I'm so happy I did it. And it was, like I said, it was a lot of work. And I tell people all the time that I wish everyone could go to a place like this. Whether you're an addict or not, it's just a nice place to sit and work on yourself hard, 16 hours a day, hard for a month. There's no way you can't learn something about yourself doing that. Anyway, then I left treatment and things started falling in place a little bit. I got a good job and stuff. And after about a year out of treatment, they asked me to come back to treatment to talk once a month. So I started doing that. And then about a year after that, they asked me to come back and work. And around that time, I was unsatisfied at my other job. So I was like, yeah, okay. So again, I'm still bouncing around from job to job. But, whatever. At least I'm still working. So anyway, so I worked there for a couple of years, and it was awesome. I loved working with the clients and stuff. And then COVID hit, and we had a fire at work, and I was kind of jobless for a while. So I was just, at this point it was COVID, so no one was allowed to work anyway. And I finished a project I was working on that was my kid's book. Sometimes Daddy Cries. It's a kid watching his dad go through depression. And then I was like, well, because I was doing other advocacy stuff and speaking and stuff, and I was kind of getting bored through COVID. So I was like, I don't know. I'd been thinking about starting a podcast for a while, and I'd been playing in bands. So I had like microphones and gear and stuff. And I made enough connections in the mental health world that I could ask people to come on. So yeah, it was during COVID that I started that. In my mind, it was just going to be like a 10 episode series kind of thing. And it was going to be like just people from Saskatchewan. And then it's been almost 3 years now and 150 episodes. And I love it. I got hooked right away. I was like, this is really cool. And then, so then things opened up again. I worked for some friends. went okay, but again, I was like, I get a little squirrely, so I had to quit that. But it was around that time I was also diagnosed with ADHD, which was incredibly validating. To be 45 years old, diagnosed with ADHD, and be like, "Oh, I'm not a fuck up. This is just a thing I have." And like learning more about ADHD is like the job bouncing, the addiction, the anxiety, the depression, like all of it is like basically symptoms of ADHD. You know, ish. And so it was like, yeah, it was super validating. Now I'm on medication. I'm like, when I do see a professional, it's through the lens of ADHD. So it's not like, because a lot of the reasons I wasn't doing any of the work when I was first seeing a counselor was because it just wasn't good. Just, it wasn't through, I'm not a normal dude, right? So to give me normal dude therapy just didn't take, it didn't stick. And this fall I also did some EMDR therapy with to deal with some of my trauma stuff, and that's been cool. So yeah, it's been a long journey. It's basically been as far as I can remember to like 2 months ago. And that's just the way it is. I mean, a year from now I might have another chapter or another thing to add to it, because we're just works in progress. We're onions, and there's always layers. So we'll see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah.
That's the cliff notes, and it was still 25 minutes.
No, I mean, it makes sense that you wanted to do 10 episodes and it turned into something bigger. You have a great story. There's a lot of value there to dig through. I even took some notes myself, like on even just questions that pop up. So it's not a surprise that people are, knocking on your door to get on the show and talk to you, and just really, yeah, I mean, you're doing
well,
it.
thank
You
you.
are totally the advocate you needed to be and wanted to be. So that's
Thanks.
huge.
I don't tell my
That's
story on my podcast very much. It's more about my guests, but I'll add my 2 bits. I'll be like, hey, yeah, I was, what I can relate, I'll tell my story a little bit, but still, anyway, yeah, it's thank you very much for that. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's nice.
So if you don't mind me asking, how long have you officially been sober then?
I do mind you asking. No, it was actually last week. It was, what was it, last Monday? It was 7 years ago to the day that I left treatment, but I was sober a few months before that, so yeah, just over 7 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great, and it's obviously good to hear. And it sounds like it wasn't the easiest journey to get there for you.
No,
but you're still doing it.
Yeah, I'm still doing it, and I mean, well, that's the thing. It's like shit still happens, and life still is challenging. But
sure,
I'm also not drunk, high, or hungover while trying to deal with it.
So you were in your sobriety during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How was that? Did that have any mental toll on you?
Not really. No.
Okay.
Let's see. I can't even tell you what it's 2024.
What year is it?
Yeah. So that was like when we first got locked down. What was that? 4 years ago?
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like
I think we're about 4 years now. Yeah. Holy shit. Wow.
God. Holy. But no, I mean, I stopped going to meetings. I was going to meetings once or twice a week, like AA meetings. So I was a little worried what that was going to do. But one nice thing about COVID is a lot of new things were created because of it, and it was like online stuff and like online meetings and like Instagram sober creators or whatever they're called. No, content creators and stuff. So it's like, there's, I didn't really miss going to meetings. That being said, some people need to go to meetings, right? That's the thing about sobriety and recovery is, everyone's on their own journey, and there's no one size fits all. So for me, early sobriety, I needed meetings and treatment, but 3 years in during COVID, I was quite comfortable. And I mean, I was stuck with my most favorite people, like my wife and my kids, in my favorite building, my house, with my favorite
Right.
animals, my dogs. Like, I mean, I thrived in during COVID, to be honest with you. I mean, I get to isolate with my favorite people. And like,
Yeah,
I,
I mean, you're not wrong.
I was like, I made a kids book and I made a podcast. I was working on my artwork. I was like, this isn't so bad.
Yeah,
But
you were preoccupied, so you were living it. Like, you're like, this is
yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, there was a lot of anxiety for other reasons. The world's like very unpredictable and what the hell's going on. But so that was weird. But yeah, no, I actually did really well with my sobriety um, during COVID. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bonus because, I mean, I'm sure you've heard just the overall mental toll that it did take on a lot of us is
Hmm.
some of us weren't as capable almost of staying a little bit on our path that we wanted to, that we had. Some of us did get a little like fucking stir crazy and was like, oh shit, I don't know about this. Like,
Hmm.
so,
Did you go a little that way?
um, I mean, I've had an anxiety for a while, so I think I kind of like had the same things that you were stating. Like, I was obviously anxious because I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Hmm.
Like, this is crazy. I just had my son in March of 2020 when the pandemic just started. So I was
Yikes.
like, why am I bringing a child into the world right now? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, like, what are we doing? So,
Yeah.
it wasn't, I'm a homebody still. So I was kind of like you, like, I'm like, wait, I get to stay home like forever? Like, this might be good.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out with my son and my partner at the time, and I was like, yeah, this could work. But yeah, I got lucky as well. But I think mentally it did make you a little stir crazy and just instilled that fear. But I think I got out of it pretty undamaged compared to some people.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I had
Good.
already knew that I had anxiety and panic disorder, and I was taking medication. I've been on medication for, this will be year number 7 or 8.
Hmm.
So, it's like I kind of was like you. I had the tools I needed already. And I was like, cool, I get to stay home. See you guys later. Like,
Yeah.
bye.
I mean, even as the man, when we had kids and like newborn kids around, it was like fuck my anxiety was times 10. Like, it's
Yeah,
like, I could imagine
those
having a
little fuckers
newborn.
do that to you.
Yeah, and having a newborn during COVID, I couldn't imagine.
I know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, my family like hadn't met him for like months because I was like, nope, 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 nope. Like, you're like, I don't know
Yeah.
what's out there, spraying your groceries down when they were coming to the door. People
Mm.
wearing gloves and masks, and I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
we're gonna sit this one out for now. So I
Well,
did a lot of sitting outside on the deck though. That was kind of like my zen. I'm still a big
mhm.
outdoors person. I think it's super beneficial for mental health. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just sit outside and stay at home. This is nice. This is
Yeah.
safe. And I'm still kind of like a hermit crab a little bit. I work remote, so I still do like home. Still like,
Yeah.
this is my place. These are my people. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. Yeah. Since I've been been trying to do the podcast full time. I mean, I've been doing it full time, but it doesn't pay like a full time job. But since I've been at
You mean
home,
people don't pay to hear you? Ah, you gotta pay for
a,
this shit, Ted. Come on.
a little bit.
I'm
Ted
just gonna
Talks.
call you Ted now too.
Yeah.
Like it's there. Like you're just Ted.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I've been called worse today. No. Uh, but uh, but yeah, I don't know if it's also like I'm getting older. I'm like middle aged too, so it's like there's people outside. I'll just stay here. But living in a small town, it's like everybody knows everybody, and it's the other day I was out and about, and someone was like, "Todd, I haven't seen you in a long time. Well, what's been going on?" It's like I've been avoiding people.
Avoiding this conversation. That's what I've been doing.
I hate small talk. I love connections like this. Like I'm having the best conversations of my life in the last 3 years, and none of them are in the post office. No offense to the
Right?
people of Indian Head. I love them. And I'm always very pleasant when you do talk to me on the street. But yeah.
But he would just prefer it if you kept delivering mail and walked on.
Kind of.
Not today. See? Yeah, kind of.
Depends on the day. That's true. Yeah.
Depends on when they catch ya.
But yeah, I've had people worried about me in the last few years, like, oh, you don't go out much. Are you okay? Like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm loving it. I'm in my basement talking to people all day about something I love. Like, are you kidding me?
That's huge. Especially because, like you said, you love it and you've connected with so many people, and that's what we need to continue to have in this community.
100%. And it just and I mean, it is a challenge too, right? And that's an ADHD thing too. I've heard it's like a paradox it's like you need structure, but you also need chaos a little bit. So it's like the perfect job for that, kind of, I guess. The finances, that's getting to me mentally a little bit, but it's also, I've been seeing progress in all, not just my listening numbers, but things are slowly happening. So if nothing was happening or it was getting worse, then I'd be really upset. But it's like, okay, things are coming around, and not that I don't want to. I'm not trying to get rich off my mental illness or other people's stories, but I don't know. I think I'm providing somewhat of a service.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
Now,
I get
now I'm
it.
backtracking and I'm like all nervous. I'm like, oh, everyone thinks I'm in this for the money.
Right. I don't want your money. Keep your money. Thank you. I'm going back to the basement.
I'll go work for the government again.
Right. So I know you said you were recently diagnosed with ADHD. So as having that diagnosis later in life, how do you think that has like shaped you? Like, was it more, because I know you had said like it was more of like it makes sense now, but like, what's that kind of look like for you? Like, what now?
Well, actually, I'm still kind of learning and dealing with it a bit. So at first it was very validating. It was very, because a lot of the things like the not being able to keep a job and going head first into a hobby and then dropping it like a year later and then having to sell all the stuff, like that kind of stuff was like, it was demoralizing. I was like, why do I do this? Why am I such a fucking idiot? And like, this internal voice, and I couldn't fit in society. Like, why can't, or, I couldn't fit in at jobs. And so that was part of my anxiety, and my depression was like that internal talk and not being able to feel like I could hold a job, or I wasn't, my self-worth was down, and that it was actually more of a a bad personality trait, when in fact it was just it's just how my brain is. So instead of like trying to force myself to be something I'm unable to do, just try to excel at what my brain does do. So that was kind of a big aha moment for me. But I did just buy a book. Of course, it had to be an audiobook because I can't just sit down and read. I've bought like 3 books about ADHD and I haven't read any of them. So I bought an audiobook this time. And one thing for me being diagnosed later in life is trying to unmask, like trying to decondition myself, because I've conditioned myself for 45 years, not even knowing that when I thought of ADHD, I'd think of the super hyperactive spazzy kid in school, right? And it was
well,
like, wow.
right, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what we were like. That's what you were told almost.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, I'm nothing like that, ish. But and then so then I find out there's different types of ADHD and stuff. It's like, oh well, shit. So yeah, trying to uncondition myself and lower the mask and really embrace the good stuff that comes with ADHD, and taking meds if I need, which I've been taking. And I've had some people say they don't take meds for their ADHD, but they were diagnosed when they were younger. So they were conditioned
Right.
from a young age. having ADHD, where it's like,
Right.
I
This is a little different.
yeah, I picked up bad coping mechanisms and stuff. So I was like, no, so maybe I'll go off them someday because I'll learn new strategies and whatever. But so yeah, it is a little different. And then another thing with being diagnosed later in life, it's something called ADHD grief, I think they call it. So basically, you look back at your life and you think, what if I was diagnosed at 10 years old, and what I could have been, what life could have been, maybe I wouldn't have had so much anxiety and depression, suicide attempts, addiction, and all this other stuff. And then you mope around. But, and apparently that's very common. I did that for maybe a week-ish, but I didn't wallow in it like some people do. I was just like, well, fuck, whatever. It almost felt like a second chance of life in a way for me, which sounds dramatic, but it really was. Like, when I got my diagnosis, like, I sobbed happy tears.
Oh, yeah, because it was kind of like there was your answer.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not, it's something that's treatable too.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I'll never be cured. It's like a hardwired thing, isn't a software thing, but still, but it's like, okay, whatever. Okay, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not a piece of shit. Like, I screamed from my rooftop, I'm not a piece of shit. Oh, phone.
Right? Oh, who the hell is calling me? It's 9:00 at night over here. These
Here
people
too.
need to get fucking lives.
Yeah. Get a life. We're talking here.
Right? Go do something. Jesus, talk to the postman like Todd.
Well, it's not the postman. It's just, so in a small town, it's a post office. Everyone goes to the same building to get their mail. So it's just,
Okay, so how small is this town?
it's just me.
It's my town, actually. Just me.
That made me laugh. It's about 1,700 people-ish, I think.
Okay, that's small.
Yeah, it's pretty small. And then our nearest city, Regina, which is 45 minutes away, an hour away, I think it's like 200,000 people, maybe. So even that, like, people from like big cities call Regina a town. So yeah, I'm in the middle of the prairies, eh? Me and Gordon, and we go moose hunting sometimes, and we throw our beavers at the moose. And,
Yeah, I mean, my town's got 77,000. So
like, that would be a city in my province. If it has a stoplight, it's a city.
Yeah, we do have those.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, well, and that's the other thing too, is actually living in somewhere very rural in a province. So Saskatchewan itself is, I don't know, I don't think it's quite the size of Texas, but it's big, and in total, there's less than 1 million people here. So it's really rural. We're spread out, and it's hard to get good mental health services too. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you think that's kind of like affected your journey or like shaped it? Or do you think it's almost better that you dealt with that in a smaller knit community? Because I can see it going both ways. Like you said, I could see it being kind of like, I don't know, I wish I had other resources. Or yeah.
Well, excuse me. Cut that. So, being in Canada, we do have healthcare, so it's paid for, but being in an isolated place is like, yes, you get free counseling, but I have to drive half an hour, 45 minutes to the nearest counselor, and you can only meet them on Tuesdays, and you have no option. This is the counselor. You can't, like, some people shop around for a counselor, one that's a good vibe and a good fit for them and stuff. It's like, you don't have that option. So that's kind of shitty. I mean, it's still there for free, so that's good. But also, I've talked to people from other small towns who were like, they did not want other people to know their business. for me, it is a kind of a comfort thing. So, the second time I went to the hospital, no, sorry, I stayed in the psych ward, and then it was like 2 years later when I was detoxing. I went to the hospital, my local hospital here in my small town, as opposed to the city, and I loved it. It was like I'm 4 blocks from home. My family can come see me anytime they want while I'm staying here. All the nurses I know from either their friends of my friend's mom, or I went to high school with them, or whatever. So it's like I like that. Some people would have hated that, right? Like detoxing around my small town. No way.
Everyone's like in your business at that point.
Yeah, no, and I liked it. I thought it was really cool. I felt very comfortable. So so it was actually really good. And the treatment center I went to for addiction was also in my small town. Just by chance, Indian Head had one of the best treatment centers around. So again, it was like the staff are like people I know, and my family
back again.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, my family were right close and stuff, and I was the only local person in there. Like all the other clients are from all over the place, so they thought it was nuts that I was even in there. They're like, I'm like, because you go for group walks, so there's like 3 groups, and you do everything's in a group. You don't ever have one-on-one counseling or anything. It's always in your group. So anyway, you have to go for group walks 3 times a day. And so anyway, walking around in my small town with this group of people, and like my mom drove by once and like beeped and waved. So, friends of mine are like waving, and
that's awesome.
yeah, it was nice actually. Everyone else thought it was like, everyone else in my group were like, "Isn't this weird?" I'm like, well, yeah, it is, but also it's kind of nice. Like, I just got to see my mom,
right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean my small town did have an effect on me, and the other thing is my small town, they were amazing. Like when I went to the hospital for detox, so I had already started, advocating at that point, and I had that letter that went viral and stuff. So it was about a month after that I had this mental health crisis again, and like the community put on like fundraisers for my family. Like there was a paint night and all this stuff, and like they bought my kids like video game things. I don't know what the hell they are. Nintendo DS things. Like my wife didn't have to cook for a month. Like people just brought food. Like it was like I still get emotional thinking about just how
it sounds super humbling.
It was totally humbling. It was almost to the point that I was like, Jen, like turn this stuff down. Like I was like almost embarrassed. Like what? No, we don't need this stuff. And my wife was like, Todd, just it's okay. People want to help us. It's fine. You can take help. It's okay. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. So I chilled out a bit, and it was incredibly humbling. It was like, people from town that I don't talk to on the street because I don't really know them, and they're going to fundraisers for us and stuff. It was amazing. So, so yeah, I kind of feel bad when I don't want to talk to someone at the post office. But they brought my wife a bundt cake,
right?
Like,
no, so, yeah. That's super cool though that it had a really impactful, what am I even trying to say?
An impactful
impact. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I'm extremely lucky that way.
Oh, I know you wrote the book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I actually, the first draft of the book was the night I woke my wife up, telling her I was going to hurt myself, and she took me to detox. I came into my house. I was in my garage. No more fun party, Todd. At this point, I was like drinking alone in the garage every night by myself, drinking 6 to 12 beer and smoking as much weed I could possibly roll and smoke. So yeah, it was no more fun party, Todd. It was sit in the garage, get drunk, and feel sorry for myself, Todd. And I had tried quitting both weed and booze. I don't know how many times. And so I thought, I'm going to drink all the booze in the house. And then in the morning, I'll tell my wife, hey, look, there's no booze in the house. Maybe we should keep it this way. It was kind of like chips. I can't, if there's chips in this house, I'll eat them. I was like, do not bring booze in this house. And I drank it all last night. But what ended up happening, of course, was I got so fucking drunk. I was like puking. Like I rarely barfed. Like I rarely got that drunk, but I was adamant I was going to drink everything. And I'd been feeling sorry and shitty for myself again for quite a while. So, I was having bad suicidal thoughts, and I came into the house, and the first draft of the book was through the eyes of a kid. I mean, it was a very different draft, but I remember thinking in the garage when I was feeling sorry for myself, just how much trauma and shit I caused my kids, and how fucked up it was. So, if my suicide note, I guess, was like through the eyes of a kid telling other kids how normal this actually is. I know it's so fucked up. I can't do anything just normal. So, so I wrote this weird suicide-y note. I don't know what the hell it was. Like, again, I was so fucking drunk. I wrote the first draft of my kid's book, hammered and suicidal.
And here we are.
But that was also the last time I ever drank. So I would come back to it over the years, do some more work on it, and found an artist to do the illustrations. And then during COVID, it was like, what better time to finish this goddamn project than while I'm sitting here for endless amount of hours. So I finally finished it, and I gotta say, I'm really proud of it. I don't say that about a lot of stuff, but I'm really proud of that book. So, it walks a fine line of, because it's a kid's book, right? I wanted it to be realistic and not too fluffy, but I didn't want it to be, creepy and, disturbing, talking about mental health. So I think I walked that fine line, and I've had a lot of professionals and parents really give it really good feedback. So nothing more I can do about that. And then I have ADHD. So as soon as I was done, I kind of walked away. It's like, oh, I have to promote this thing now. Do I have to make my money back? Do I? So anyway, I think I've broken even on it, but it was never about, again, it wasn't about getting rich off it, but, so anyway, I also didn't want to get poor because of it. But, it's
sometimes
on
money
Amazon.
is nice.
It is, yeah. But it's on Amazon. That's they print to order. Is that what it's called? I don't know what print. I don't know what they call it.
I don't know.
I don't have a bunch
haven't written
of
a fucking book yet.
Yeah. I don't have a bunch printed in a box because they're too expensive for me to print and sit on. So I just tell people to go to Amazon and buy it.
Yeah, I'm a big Amazon fan, so I appreciate that.
I'm not a Bezos fan, but I like Amazon.
Yes, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, 100% there.
Breaks my heart every time I order something from there. But it's also like,
you're like, oh,
that was
shit,
easy.
I did it again. Shit.
Yeah.
So, what changes have you made then to stay on your path?
Ooh, what changes have I done? Well, I guess recently was the diagnosis of the ADHD was incredibly helpful just for my, my mind. It put my mind at ease somewhat.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the new medication, plus the new style of like therapy and stuff. Well, they call it ADHD coaching. Not really counseling, but it's counseling really. Doing the EMDR stuff. It's just basically staying on top of stuff. What I think stuff's creeping in again, then I'll either try some of my old modalities and strategies, and if that's not working, then I try something new like EMDR, which I'd never tried before, or I'll go on online to do a AA meeting or a group therapy thing or whatever. But yeah, and it all took practice. I'm just more self-aware.
Yeah.
So by accident, just by practicing, just by practicing being self-aware. It takes time. Healing and recovery, it all takes time. So I mean, I remember early recovery. It was like, I've been sober for 6 months. Why aren't I feeling good? It's like,
Right. Am
oh
I
yeah,
cured yet?
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, I've been drinking for 30 years and I've been a dipshit for that long too. So it's gonna take more than 6 months, I guess. Uh, so yeah, just accidentally or through practice becoming self-aware, it makes life a lot easier. And yeah, and it comes with maturity too. Maybe age, maybe not. I guess not. Maybe not. I
No, I
guess.
think that that's true. I think that's actually kind of true, because like I am gearing up to turn 30 this year, and I am not happy about that. But I feel like I am the most self-aware now than I have ever been.
Right.
Because I don't know, I feel like in your 20s, you're like, yeah, man, fuck it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I feel like shit today, tomorrow will be fine. And now I'm like, oh, that's probably not the best way to approach that.
Right. That instant gratification is bad,
Right?
possibly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in 10 years from now, and that's the other thing. Like, because I am constantly doing different modalities and things, it's like I said earlier, like 2 years from now, I could have add another chapter to my story. It's constant maintenance. It's constantly
Yeah.
staying on top of shit. Once you peel back one layer of shit, there's another layer there. It might not be as thick of shit, but it's still something else you want
Hopefully
to
it's a
deal
little bit
with.
better, but it's still there.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's just moving on. It's just going with the flow. Yeah, I've changed a lot. And like my anger issue, like since actually getting sober was like, it helped my anger and it helped my depression more than anything else.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't like fly off the handle now so easily, and I don't spend days in bed hating myself. My anxiety, not so much. I still had lots of anxiety and stuff, but getting rid of those two things, just that alone, just made me more clear-minded and be able to be more self-aware, and because I wasn't preoccupied being angry or depressed.
Yeah. Yeah, you're at the forefront now, really dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. I can. It's like framing a house. Like getting sober was framing the house, and now I can like pick the hinges in the cupboard for the kitchen. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, I can really zone in on stuff, and those are the layers I'm peeling back and focusing on now. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like for me too, just I mean, you hit it right there, just saying like being more self-aware has helped you to change your path and like stay where you're at. Because I feel like we have to get through things in order to really deal with them. So for me personally, I have battled, like I said, panic disorder and anxiety for 7 years. And I lost my dad 2 years ago, and I don't ever think that I really grieved properly because I was just so anxious and like
Mm,
always had these other things going on. And now that I'm finally getting my anxiety under control and kind of being self aware, I'm peeling back another layer. And
mm-hmm.
sometimes that looks scary though, as well,
Oh
because,
fuck yeah.
because now I'm like, I go to therapy weekly, and my therapist is like, okay, well, now that we have been more self aware and we have the anxiety and panic under control, like, let's move to something else. And I'm like, oh, fuck, do we have to? It's just like,
Oh, there's always
there's,
something else. That's the
right? I was
thing.
like, there's more. She's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're right. So, like, now I'm like, okay, well, this is a different chapter because now I'm starting to face the reality of losing a parent. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think that that is hard to accept the layers and like dive into something new because you're like, oh, this anxiety's kicked your ass. And now you're like, oh, what's next? Like, here's
Yeah,
another layer.
exactly. Yeah. And there's another layer, and I have to keep maintaining the layer I just went through. So I have to keep doing homework.
You don't want to go backwards, definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, it is scary. It's always scary starting a new chapter and trying to deal with the next thing, the next layer that comes up. It is definitely scary, especially for someone that has anxiety. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's really not avoiding my emotions anymore with alcohol or even anxiety. Like anxiety, sometimes that was like my default mode because I didn't have to feel or deal with what, even like, okay, I'm all over the place here, but in treatment, um, I was told like you have to learn to feel your feelings, and I was like, I feel shitty all the time. I know how to feel, but no, I knew how to feel shitty, and that was my go-to. Like it was like I was scared to feel contentment because
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
know how.
yeah.
I knew how to feel shitty, so it was like if I was having a good day, I would actually get scared and like almost purposefully feel shitty again because
Oh, yeah.
I knew how to deal with shitty. I didn't know how to deal with contentment, or it was like contentment was so scary to me that it was like so in AA there's the saying, this too shall pass, and it's always, and they use that for like when you're feeling shitty or when you're having you're craving, this too shall pass. But I have flipped it all the time, and I put it on to when I'm feeling good, this too shall pass. So it was like I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, when I stop feeling good, it's gonna suck, so I'm just gonna feel like shit all the time, and then I can't get disappointed. I can't feel like shit. so it was like, but it took me like 2 years in my sobriety to realize, like, what the fuck are you doing, you idiot? Like, take your small wins, like enjoy, just feel what you want to feel. Just feel what your body is trying to feel. Stop avoiding
Yeah.
feelings,
Right.
good,
Being
bad, or
present and
otherwise.
feeling it.
Yeah, and just be honest with yourself. And like, and it's, yeah, it just makes life so much easier to live.
And
Like,
it's funny, but it's not funny that you brought that up because I have had the exact conversation with my therapist. How, like, like panic disorder is weird. So you just sometimes can start panicking for no reason. So if I'm
hmm,
not panicking, my brain is like, well, shouldn't we be though? Like, if things are going too good, it's like, wait, what's going on? So she's
yeah.
like, so you're telling me that before you had anxiety, you were anxious about things, but now you're anxious that you don't have anxiety. I was like, yes, that's it. I was like, correct. You hit it on the head. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, you know how fucked up that sounds? And she's like, yeah, a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I'm always on high alert. And
Hmm.
I like can't just take the good, like you said, take the small win. Like, I haven't had a panic attack in 2 weeks. I couldn't say that a month ago. And to me, I'm like
Hmm.
still walking on eggshells, like, like
Hmm.
what's next? What are we doing here? Things
Hmm.
are a little bit too good right now. So
Like,
it's crazy how we can kind of get ourselves in that.
yeah, you're always looking around corners, like, what the fuck? So instead of like looking around corners, like, what's gonna jump out and make me feel like shit? I'll just feel like shit all the time, and then no one can
Right,
jump
I'll
out.
just tell myself, like you said already, I feel like shit because I could deal with shit. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. And it's
Like,
horrible, and you hate it. It's
right?
like,
Like, this is easier here.
I know,
We'll stay
it's
right
such a
here.
paradox. It's a paradox.
Oh boy. Well, we gotta
Yeah,
laugh about it though. I always tell that to people that come on, gotta laugh about these things. Life is just really genuinely too short. And if we can't laugh about it, talk about it, like, what are we doing? We're not helping each other get through it. We gotta share our stories and figure it out.
yeah, 100%. I love laughing about it. I mean, actually, when I was in treatment for addiction, or yeah, for drinking and stuff, my face would hurt some days. The amount of laughing that people did in there, and it was amazing because it's like a crazy cross section of society that's in there. There's people I would never like associate with otherwise, and now we have this huge bond together because we went through this process of treatment together, and you're forced to go through therapy with each other basically in these groups. And was Gabor Mate, the doctor says that, the opposite of addiction is connection, and connecting with someone that you would never normally connect with is such an amazing feeling. Why was I saying this? Oh, about laughing. Oh, so yeah. So anyway, but yeah. So yeah, you'd hear these fucked up stories in group therapy, and it was just like heartbreaking. It's just, oh my God. And then 20 minutes later, you're just making dark jokes and dark humor, and like no one else unless you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, you don't get it. So it's like you're part of this secret club that can laugh at each other, Same with being in the psych ward, actually. That's so fucked up.
On that note, I'm just kidding. I really do appreciate you taking the time to tell your story and, really dive deep with us here. I know you said sometimes you don't really mention your story on your channel. So I'm happy that you were able to take some time with me tonight and just tell people the story that needs to be told. And you bring a lot of value to this community. And it's incredible. I really do appreciate just even knowing you.
Well, thank you so much. This is something I'm trying to learn to do, is take compliments, because
I get that.
Yeah, internally I'm like, she doesn't know me. I'm an idiot. So I thank you so much. That's really, really nice to hear, and I appreciate it so much. And welcome to the community. I mean, like I said, it's the more the merrier. When it comes to being advocates and podcasting about similar stuff, there's no competition. I mean, everyone's welcome, because the whole point of this is to normalize it and have people feel better about their journeys. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. And for my listeners, where can they connect with you if they want to listen to your show or just get to know you even more?
I'm most active on Instagram. It's Bunny Hugs Podcast. The podcast, I think, is on pretty much any podcast platform, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. And on YouTube, I'm kind of new to YouTube. It's only been a few months. I don't know what the hell I'm doing on there, so I could use some more subscribers, please. But that too, it's Bunny Hugs and Mental Health on there. And on Thursdays, so Saturdays, my podcast comes out. On Thursdays, that's the one I co-host with Nick Thompson. Mental Health I always screw this up. Mental Health Headline Hot Takes. But that's also under if you follow me on whatever, you'll see those too. I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not.
Get this man some coffee.
Oh God, that's all I need is more coffee.
Right? It's late. We're tired. It's fine.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And I always like to tell people, anytime I'm finishing an interview like this, no pill, no doctor, no therapist is going to cure you. They are there to support you and help you along your journey, but you have to do the work. And it's not fair. It's unfortunate, but it's also that's just what has to happen.
I love it and totally back you on that. And again, glad to have you on here. Really do appreciate it. And how I like to end these is we're not going to push that panic button. We're going to figure it out. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Jess.